You shared food with me, human? On my planet, that's a marriage proposal. Those words had stayed in Daniel's mind ever since Kari said them. It had been a year since she left Earth. A year since the alien delegation had ended their stay and returned to their homeworld. A year since Daniel last saw the strange but kind woman who had become more than just a friend. At first, it had seemed almost like a joke. They had been sitting together in a crowded market near the embassy, surrounded by curious humans and cautious aliens. Daniel had offered her a piece of his bread, smiling as if it was the most normal thing in the world. Kari had looked shocked, her wide golden eyes staring at him like he had just set the sky on fire. Then she said it, softly, but with a seriousness that made his heart stumble. You shared food with me, human? On my planet, that's a marriage proposal. Daniel had laughed at the time. Kari had smiled too, though he remembered how her gaze lingered longer than he expected, as though the words weren't a joke at all. Now, with her gone, that memory felt heavier. Every evening, when the sky turned deep orange and the city lights began to glow, Daniel would find himself staring out the window. He wondered what Kari saw on her planet. Did she think of him? Did she still remember that moment with the bread? Or had it been lost in the rush of duty and distance? He had tried to write her once, a message sent through the slow and tangled channels of interstellar communication. Weeks passed before he got a reply, and it was short, formal, polite. Nothing like the way she used to talk to him. It left him feeling even more distant, like he was reaching across a galaxy and touching only shadows. Still, Daniel could not let go. He remembered the little things. How Kari would tilt her head when she was confused, how she tried to copy human laughter until it became her own. How she once told him she liked the way humans shared food so easily. It was strange to her, but warm, something her people had long forgotten in their strict traditions. That thought gave him hope. Maybe the reason she had been so shocked by his offer of bread was because deep down, she wanted that closeness too. But hope was a fragile thing. Daniel's friends told him to move on. She's light years away, they said. She has her own people, her own life. You're just making yourself sad. He would nod and smile, but when he was alone, he held on to the memory of her voice. It wasn't just loneliness. It wasn't just affection. It was something else. Something human. The belief that even across impossible distance, connection mattered. That kindness once given never truly faded. Sometimes Daniel wondered if this was what it meant to be human, to keep reaching out even when the universe seemed too big. To believe that a shared meal, a small act of care could bridge worlds. He didn't know how to reconnect with her. He didn't know if she even wanted him to. But he knew one thing, he wasn't going to give up. He would wait, he would hope, and when the chance came, he would remind her of that moment. Because to him it wasn't just bread. It was the start of something he couldn't explain in words, but could feel every time he remembered her smile. And maybe, just maybe, Kari felt it too. The night grew quiet around him as he whispered to the empty room, half in longing, half in promise. You shared food with me, human? On my planet, that's a marriage proposal. The words echoed softly in his heart, carrying both sadness and hope. Hope that someday, somehow, she would return, and the distance between them would no longer matter. Daniel sat at his desk, the soft hum of the city outside drifting through the window. His old message screen glowed faintly, waiting for a new transmission that never came. He had checked it more times than he cared to admit, hoping for Kari's reply. But weeks had turned into months, and silence stretched across the stars. He leaned back in his chair and sighed. It wasn't just the absence of words that hurt. It was the emptiness where her presence used to be. Back when she had been on Earth, every day had been different. She had brought laughter into simple moments, curiosity into quiet hours. Without her, life felt ordinary again, and Daniel hated it. He opened the drawer of his desk and pulled out the notebook he had filled over the months. Inside were sketches of Kari's face, Notes about things she had told him and fragments of letters he had written but never sent. Some were long, spilling out everything he wanted to say. Others were only a single line like, "Do you still remember that bread?" Daniel closed the notebook gently, pressing his palm against its cover as though it could bring him closer to her. He wanted to reconnect, but he didn't know how. Messages took weeks, sometimes months, to cross the gulf of space. By the time one reached her, the moment was gone. Worse, her replies were always short, cautious, as if she didn't want to say too much. It made him wonder, did she feel the same distance, or was he the only one holding on? One night, Daniel walked through the city to clear his thoughts. The air was cool, and neon signs glowed against the dark sky. He stopped at a food stall that sold flatbread, almost the same as the one he had once shared with Kari. He bought one, held it in his hands, and for a moment it was as if she were beside him again. He remembered how her golden eyes had widened, how her voice had carried both shock and wonder. "You shared food with me, human? On my planet, that's a marriage proposal." The memory pulled at his heart. Maybe to her it hadn't been a joke. Maybe it had meant something deeper. He took a bite of the bread and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, Kari was walking under a different sky. Did she ever look up and think of him too? The thought gave him a small spark of hope. When he returned home, Daniel made a decision. If words were too slow, if silence was too heavy, then he would send her something else, something human, something that showed her what she meant to him. He spent the next weeks working on it. During the day, he went to work as usual, but at night he sat at his desk, crafting his message. Not with words, but with images, sounds, and memories. He recorded the laughter of children in the park, the sound of rain against his window, and the melody of a street musician's song. He filmed the market where they had first eaten together, showing the stalls filled with bright colors and warm smells. And at the end, he included a picture of himself holding bread in his hands, smiling softly into the camera. It wasn't a letter. It was a piece of earth, a piece of himself sent across the stars. When he finished, he sent the file through the embassy's communication system. It would take weeks to reach her, maybe longer, but at least he had tried. Then came the waiting. Daniel checked the screen every morning, every night. Days turned into weeks again. His friends noticed his quietness, his absent gaze. They told him to stop hoping, to move forward. But he couldn't. Humans were stubborn like that. When they cared, they held on, even when the universe told them to let go. One evening, just as he was about to give up for the night, the screen flickered. A new message had arrived. Daniel's heart raced as he opened it. It was from Kari. Her image appeared, a little grainy from the transmission, but still her. The same golden eyes, the same careful tilt of her head. "Daniel," she began, her voice softer than he remembered. "I received your gift. I watched it many times. The sounds of your city, the laughter, the rain. I had never heard anything like it before. It felt alive. I could almost stand beside you again." She paused, and Daniel noticed her hands moving nervously, as if she were struggling to find the right words. "And the bread," she continued, her voice growing quieter. "You remembered. On my world, to share food is sacred. It means you trust someone with your life. It means more than I can say here." Her eyes lowered for a moment before she looked back at the camera. "I do not know if I can promise anything. My people have many rules, many traditions. But I want you to know. I remember. I think of that day too. And when I see the bread in your hands, I feel hope." The message ended there. Daniel sat frozen, his heart pounding. It wasn't a declaration, it wasn't a promise, but it was enough. She remembered. She felt it too. For the first time in months, he smiled. The distance between them was still there, vast and unyielding, but hope had bridged it even for a moment. He whispered to himself, almost as if speaking to her through the night sky. "That's what it means to be human, Kari. We don't give up. We keep reaching even when it hurts. Daniel leaned back in his chair, the city lights flickering against the glass. He knew the road ahead would not be easy, but he also knew he wasn't alone anymore. Somewhere out there, across the stars, Kari had heard him, and she had answered, and that was enough to keep him going.